thank you so much, Sanana, for the great work that Remake Learning is doing. As you can see from the presentation, and just the many students we know that are benefiting from Sanana's efforts. So it's phenomenal. Thank you very much. Our second speaker today on this topic is Eileen Cipriani. Okay, Eileen is the Deputy Secretary for Workforce Development at the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry. She's been deeply engaged in the coordination of the department's interagency projects that are an effort to facilitate collaboration and reduce duplication in workforce service delivery. Under her leadership, the newly created Office of Apprenticeships and Training has greatly expanded, not only in the number of apprenticeships now offered statewide, but also the diversity of the occupations that are participating. She's been instrumental in interagency projects such as the Next Generation Sector Strategy Model to significantly improve the way in which state government addresses business needs and efforts to share interagency resources and data. When Eileen comes up, she will introduce you to a panel of participants that will be sharing the stage with her for her presentation, including folks from the Southern Alleghenies Workforce Development Board, along with Carol Kilko from the Department of Community and Economic Development. Please join me now in welcoming Deputy Secretary Eileen Cipriani to the stage.
So we'll pause for a second while we set our stage for our show here today. Hang on one second. All right, thank you to our crew for setting us up this morning, and good morning. Again, I'm Eileen Cipriani. I'm the Deputy Secretary for Workforce Development, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And it's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank the Department of Education for inviting me today to join you. But every opportunity that we get to talk about Governor Wolf, the Department of Labor and Industry, and its partners and workforce staff around the state, and talk about what we're doing to fulfill the governor's principles of jobs that pay, schools that teach, and government that work, is truly a great opportunity for us. And I want to thank Savannah for her lead-in this morning. I didn't know what her remarks were going to be like, but the conversation around networking just dovetails exactly into what we're going to talk about this morning with our friends from Southern Alleghenies. I want to take it to the next level. We talked about networking amongst our friends in the education world. We want to talk about partnerships throughout the Commonwealth with our other state entities and local entities. Because effective partnership among Pennsylvania state and local workforce agencies, our schools, and employers are growing increasingly vital to meeting the education and training and employment challenges that Pennsylvania's job seekers and businesses face. The knowledge-based workplace of today, and certainly that of the not-too-distant future, demands a single, forward-thinking, and coordinated effort from our partners to position our state's most valuable resource, our Pennsylvanians, to be ready for the 21st century workforce. I have the privilege of traveling the Commonwealth, talking to businesses across the state. I talk to CTCs. I was remarking the other day, I visited almost 30 CTCs. I visited community colleges. I visited numerous factories, chambers of commerce, four-year educational institutions, community colleges, and the theme is always the same. We cannot find enough skilled workers to fill the jobs we have. And it's not just in one particular industry. It's not just in manufacturing. It's not just in IT or healthcare. It's across the board. We have a real need to have the properly skilled individuals going through our training programs in order to meet the needs of our businesses in the state. Governor Wolf himself was a very successful business owner. He understands firsthand the challenges that these employers and industries are facing. If Pennsylvania is to stay economically relevant and successful, we need a workforce system that supports partnerships among business, education, and government to educate and train and empower our future workforce. Under Governor Wolf, Pennsylvania has realigned our workforce system through the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And that act has allowed us to align the Department of Labor and Industry, the Department of Community and Economic Development, the Department of Education, Aging, Agriculture, all together so that we could move forward to better coordinate, share priorities, and have more efficient services by using technology and eliminating waste and redundancy. For the past 3 years, it has been my pleasure to serve as the Deputy Secretary for Workforce Development and be part of the strides that Pennsylvania has made to build a better workforce development system, one that prepares students and job seekers for the demands of a truly knowledge-based workforce system. Restructuring Pennsylvania's workforce development has been a huge task, and one that the governor has made great strides with in his first 4 years, but there's certainly a lot of work to be done yet. And one of the things that we are really focused on is meeting the future needs of our business community. In 1950, only about 10% of the jobs were, and I'll use some broad strokes here to describe these categories, at the time only 10% were considered skilled labor jobs. That's typically work that required some specialized training or high school diploma, but not necessarily college. 16% of American jobs were professional work that demanded post-secondary education or an advanced degree. At the time, nearly 3/4 of the workforce were in jobs that required little or no education and no significant amount of training. Fast forward to 2016, just 2 years ago, and that middle portion that used to be 10% is all the way up to 46%. We need a higher skilled workforce in Pennsylvania and across the country. Now, while some studies indicate that that percentage of skilled jobs versus non-skilled jobs will stay the same, there are factors out there that are going to significantly change our workforce and how our workers work in our workforce. In a recent study by the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia entitled Automation and Regional Employment in the 3rd Reserve District, the report stated a significant number of jobs, a little bit over 30%, will be affected to some extent by automation, and another nearly 18% will be possibly replaced by the rise of technology, automation, and artificial intelligence in the workplace. So while technology, automation, and AI are going to make some pretty serious changes to our workplace and the jobs people do, although as those jobs change, we will now be creating new jobs, jobs where we have people that operate, maintain, and program all of the artificial intelligence and automation that's affecting our workforce. Several weeks ago, I had an opportunity to visit York Exponential. It's a company that works with robots cooperatively with workers right in the workplace. So these robots are placed into a place of business where they work side by side with workers, eliminating tasks that are redundant or potentially dangerous for the employees. The great part about this is they are retraining individuals who have mechanical aptitude to program, to install, and to maintain. I even got to do coding, and without even having known how to do coding, artificial intelligence was doing the coding for these. That's how advanced this was. But that's how our job market is changing. In short, we're going to be losing some jobs for technology. We're certainly going to invent some new jobs, but most importantly, we need to be prepared for our future workforce. So we're talking about what are we doing in Pennsylvania to prepare ourselves for this. And one of the things right now that we're doing is the PA SMART program. Governor Wolf and the Pennsylvania Workforce Development Board have launched this first one-of-a-kind, first-time $30 million competitive grant program to do a couple of really important things. One is to invest in the best of the best plans and programs across the state that will improve STEM education. The second is to catalyze and revitalize our industry partnership program. This is rebuilding our industry partnerships into the next generation industry partnerships, where we could put businesses at the center of the table and find out what businesses really need and have them lead the agenda for the public partners in the Commonwealth. And the last thing is to foster more apprenticeship programs. Apprenticeship programs are key to training our future workforce in Pennsylvania. So Governor Wolf is working to ensure that every child has a world-class education that includes high-quality careers in STEM and computer science. The governor has championed increased resources and support for career and technical education, as well as improving and aligning Pennsylvania's public education and workforce development systems to improve student outcomes. Not specifically a PA SMART initiative, but a fine example of how workforce partners in education are working together to improve a STEM pipeline is a program called New Paths. New Paths is an effort co-founded by Harrisburg University and the Cumberland Valley School District. It offers a springboard of career success in types of occupations that I've mentioned before in STEM-centered education. New Path provides a series of courses to develop information technology skills based specifically on industry certification. There are 6 different ones that can be earned in in-demand IT jobs. These courses are for students that are interested in advancing their education and for students who can't afford or aren't interested in pursuing a formal 4-year degree. Students will leave there with industry-recognized credentials, and they will also leave with 12 credits at Harrisburg University in order to advance their careers. New Paths is also, at Cumberland Valley High School, they're partnering with Carlisle Area High School. This is students from Carlisle Area High School can come down and afford themselves to the programs at Cumberland Valley. The other big initiative that the governor has is apprenticeship programs. They're among the best, most inclusive ways to be a contributor and be at the table with business partners making a difference and making connections among our young individuals through career and training opportunities. The governor values these so much that he's put $7 million into the PA SMART initiative so that we could expand apprenticeships throughout the state. Over the past 2 years, we've had an apprenticeship and training office in the Commonwealth. We've grown the number of apprentices that we've had by 27%. There's over 17,000 apprentices throughout the state. And just to talk a little bit about some of the apprenticeship programs, when you think of apprenticeship, you think of your traditional apprenticeships in your construction and trades such as that. We have an apprenticeship program with the Hanover Chamber of Commerce that engages 2 school districts that have pre-apprenticeship programs in mechatronics, welding, and CNC machining. These students, the first year of the program, there were 12 students. They're up to 70 this year. So this program is taking off, and we're trying to model that throughout the state. So as I spoke this morning, one of the common things that I think you've probably heard me say is the word partnership. I probably said partnership 24 times during my remarks. And that brings us to this esteemed group we have gathered here today. This group looked at the situation in Bedford County, the need for STEM and computer science training, and worked together. My partner here, Gwen Ross from the Department of Community and Economic Development, will help set the stage for this. But these individuals traveled 3 hours this morning from the crack of dawn to be able to tell you how they are working together between economic development, between workforce, education, and their business partners to develop a partnership and how it works for them and what their challenges are. So let me introduce Gwen Ross from the Department of Community and Economic Development, and she'll help set the stage for the conversation we're going to have.
Thank you. For any of you who do know Carol Kilco, you'll know I'm about 8 inches shorter, and our hair is a little different shades of color, but she is my supervisor, and unfortunately she couldn't be here today, so I am trying to fill her shoes. Her and Eileen have really developed a great relationship over the past few years, and they truly do model the interagency collaboration that our governor is looking to all of the state agencies to have. So thank you again, Eileen, and good morning. My name is Gwen Ross, and I serve as the Director of Workforce Development Initiatives for the Department of Community and Economic Development. Prior to this administration, we didn't have anyone at DCED who was dedicated to workforce development. But we hear all the time from our clientele that we work with, business and industry, that finding people to come and work in their jobs, finding skilled people in order to keep their businesses growing and continuing are their biggest need right now. So that's why we have workforce development and economic development. They really are intertwined, and we're learning more and more that you cannot have one without the other. As Eileen had mentioned, Governor Wolf does have a vision when it comes to training and preparing Pennsylvania's workforce. Through PA SMART, there are funding initiatives for funding partnership for next generation industry partnerships, apprenticeships, and STEM and computer science education. All of these programs help to strengthen industry in a region and prepare current and future workforce. PA SMART also calls for the tighter collaboration, the interagency collaboration among state agencies to streamline our services and to better serve Pennsylvanians. DC, Dean, Ellen, and I do already have a jump on this call to collaboration. Over the past few years, our departments have been working together on numerous initiatives that call to strengthen our workforce and our communities. Collaboration among partners enables us to provide best service both at the state and at the local level. To further demonstrate how this collaboration can have a real impact, we are going to hear from the Southern Allegheny STEM ecosystem team. They took a serious look at their region, the education system, the industry in the area, the needs that the industry has, and opportunities for students, and realized that developing a STEM ecosystem was the best way to align their workforce, education, and economic development partners to meet the needs of employers in the region and to prepare the students to work and stay in the region. They began first by identifying the need and then formed a team that brought together K-12 schools, higher education, public libraries, workforce development agencies, businesses and industries, and community partners. They created a coordinated and cohesive approach to ensuring that the region has a trained workforce that it needs to remain competitive into the future. Serving Bedford, Blair, Cambria, and Somerset counties in south central Pennsylvania, the ecosystem is harnessing the power of many groups that are already working on these initiatives to create bridges between K-12 and higher education and the employers who hire the students. The ecosystem has already identified some initiatives they want to target, and those initiatives include training for teachers in techniques for incorporating computer science across disciplines, educating students and their parents on pathways that lead to employment, and educating business and industry on how to engage teachers, students, and parents directly with the workplace through industry tours and apprenticeships. The ecosystem will be preparing the Southern Allegheny workforce to be strong and competitive long into the future. But you've heard enough from me, and I know you'd really love to hear from the ecosystem team, how it all came about. So at this point, I would like to introduce the team. We have Carol Kakabar, who's the superintendent of the Ferndale Area School District and the chief school administrator for the Greater Johnstown Career and Technology Center. Debbie Bailong, who's the Director of Workforce Development with the Johnstown Area Regional Industries. Sean Kaufman, Director of Human Resources with Riggs Industries Incorporated. Susan Whistler, who's the Director of Southern Allegheny's Workforce Development Board. And Dr. Barbara Zeborowski, the Interim Vice President for Academic Affairs with Pennsylvania Highlands Community. So at this time, I would like each of them to just say something about themselves, the role that they play, and the role that they play particularly in this ecosystem. Susan, you want to start off?
Well, good morning. The Southern Alleghenies Workforce Development Board is committed to helping employers make sure that they have a skilled pipeline of workers. We need to have those in order to keep our region competitive. But we're also so committed to and using a significant amount of our funding to ensure that young people stay in school and then beyond that, help them to get the skills needed to become part of that workforce pipeline and hopefully remain in our region. And so this initiative fits so well into the mission, the vision, and really what the workforce development boards, not only ours, but all of the ones that work in your region are charged with.
Representing a community college, I can tell you that our focus is we have a large workforce development initiative. We are also concerned about ensuring that the students that come from the K-12 environment into the community college have the skill sets needed that we can then advance them into opportunities in our region for advanced technology degrees. We do a lot partnering with the workforce development agencies, primarily Susan's Workforce Development Board. You're going to hear in a minute from Johnstown Area Regional Industries. Again, it's all about ensuring that we have enough students that are qualified for the high technology jobs that are currently existing in our region.
My name is Sean Kaufman. I'm the Director of Human Resources with Riggs Industries. We're a Somerset County-based construction and manufacturing company, and like probably every employer in your district, our biggest problem right now is just simply finding people. So one of the things that we've done To combat that, we formed a partnership with our local Career and Tech Center where we are actually providing the curriculum, the instructor, in the space for students that are going through a quick welding program. And that could not have happened had we not built the partnership with that school. It's been very successful for us, and I think a model for some other programs to follow.
And I'm actually representing economic development, and many of you know our economic development agencies across the Commonwealth are really concerned about our companies. A lot of our companies are telling us that if they do not have access to a skilled workforce, they cannot grow and expand. So that's really critical for us to be an integral part of making sure that they have the resources, especially in workforce development, to be able to bid on those contracts, to grow their business, to expand their business, but also we're also concerned about companies who are going to be able to sustain their business. So our organization is very concerned about, what's going on in workforce development and making sure that our companies have access to the resources that they need to be able to grow and expand. Also, in our prospecting initiatives, when we're looking at talking with new companies, whether they're in the United States or we work a lot with prospecting with international companies. The first question that we get, and I'm sure this is no surprise to anyone, but the first question that we get is not do you have the buildings, do you have the roads, do you have the airports, but the first question is, do you have a workforce for us to be able to compete in your environment? So that's really where economic development comes in to play with workforce development.
Good morning, everyone. I sit in a unique position, being able to see it from the student perspective, the training perspective, and then also the workforce perspective. As a 28-year administrator and teacher, I've had the pleasure of serving the last 7 years as the Chief School Administrator for the Greater Johnstown Career and Technology Center. Very progressive technology center with a lot of great ideas and playing a role in this initiative. Additionally, through Johnstown Area Regional Industries, I think for the past 8 years, Deb, I've been the education chair. So I get to see it from all angles, which is very helpful when trying to pull together education and students and opportunities. We're in the midst of a silver tsunami, is how it's being described, with workforce and people in the workforce retiring, reaching retirement age, and not enough workers to replace them. Qualified workers, workers who can pass a drug test, and workers who want to stay in the area and have those soft skills, those work ethic skills that are also needed. So we're here to try to pull it all together and make it work for all of the schools in our region, as well as our secondary, post-secondary education centers and business and industry.
Thank you. I have a few prepared questions, but we definitely want to open it up to the audience if there's anything that you want to ask. Eileen is out in the audience, and we'll run around with the microphone. But first, as we know, partnerships are really essential, and pulling together all the necessary entities in order to develop that partnership is not always an easy task. So what inspired your group to take on this project at this time? We had heard before there is some funding available through PA Smart, but what beyond the funding opportunity did you feel now was the right time to do this?
Well, actually, the PA Smart grant was kind of just the instigator. It wasn't the primary motivating factor, but what it caused us to do was, when we heard about the grant, we heard about an ecosystem, we looked into what an ecosystem is. It's the whole concept of it takes a village, to pull together to make sure that all the needs are being met. We looked around and I thought, well, geez, the college partners with Southern Alleghenies on a lot of things, and we partner with Riggs Industries, and we're always doing workforce development with JARI. And as we started to talk among ourselves, we realized we were already doing a lot of the things that the grant was asking. We just were not doing it in a coordinated, systematic way. So what we did was we had a lot of introductory meetings where we invited people. We had a small group, and then that small group, we said, well, who else do you think should be involved here? And then we added more people. And then as Debbie is out in the community talking to other businesses, just last week we heard we have Pepsi Cola in Johnstown. It's the largest bottling plant in North America. They're interested in STEM. She says, well, don't I have a project for you? They want to be involved now. So it's that word of mouth and that continuous building that's making us have a really strong ecosystem, and a lot of people doing the same thing. We just all now want to push the wagon together instead of doing it individually. So the grant was just the impetus to do it. We realized it was really always being done, and I'm sure it's being done in your areas as well. It's just now we're going to do it more coordinated.
Great, thank you. How has the region reacted to the development of the ecosystem? Has there been any pushback at all? Have you heard from any partners like, no, I'm already doing this work, we don't need this here?
From our perspective, we have not had any pushback whatsoever. In fact, Barb indicated that in my conversation with the representatives from Pepsi was, wow, you know what, we were looking for somebody or someone to talk to about us looking at getting more non-traditional folks involved in the STEM industry, especially women getting involved in STEM. So now that businesses are finding out that we're now working together collaboratively, we're having them call us now and say, can we be a part of your partnership? And I think because I'm out every day, my role and responsibility is to be out with businesses every day to understand what their needs are from now and in the future. And when I go out and talk to them about STEM, we've never had anyone say, hey, we're not interested in that. We have more people saying, can we be involved in building the ecosystem? In fact, when we did one of our idea sessions, we had one of our local business owners who facilitated that session. So we've not had any pushback whatsoever. It's more interest than anything else.
Great, thank you. Want to turn it over to the audience? Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask of the panelists? Oh, there's all the way in the back.
Hi, go ahead. Let me tell you who our partners are right at the moment. We have 5 post-secondary partners, which is all the higher education institutions in our 4-county region. And by the way, just so you understand geographically where we are in Pennsylvania, when the previous speaker had put the map up of Pennsylvania, the little gray area between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, that's us. We're that south central piece that's not Pittsburgh and not Philadelphia. Actually, Bedford County was one of the yellow counties there where there is little to no STEM education happening in that area. So we're in a high demand need area. But we have 5 post-secondary partners, 4 school districts involved, 1 intermediate unit, a women's organization, 2 workforce development agencies, 2 chambers of commerces, 3 public library systems, and right now 3 strong industry partners. So our plan moving forward is that K-12 teacher education, because the state has identified computer science as one of the needs that the state is lacking in. We want to start to train teachers in the K-12, and actually starting as young as pre-K as well. The cross-disciplinary approach is to incorporating computer science techniques and themes in all kinds of early childhood and middle school curricula. So part of our plan is to have a curriculum specialist. We're going to use the post-secondary institution computer science faculty to do the training, and this is how we're going to kind of engage teachers in how to do a soft sell approach to incorporating computer science as soon as possible, so that by the time they get to the post-secondary, all the students will have some exposure to it. Does that answer your question?
I am also wondering just about the logistical challenge of getting K to 12 teachers to meetings. That's something that I would like to see more of in my own STEM ecosystem.
Yeah, we talked about that. We found out from the school districts that were involved in our planning session, the biggest hurdle we have is release time. They won't get release time. We have a dearth of substitute teachers in our area, so even if the school districts have monies to release teachers, there's no substitute to put in that place. So what we are looking at is we are going to leverage technology to help us with this. We are going to Zoom meetings, we're going to record sessions, we're putting up a comprehensive website with training. Our intermediate unit already does a lot of training on robotics kinds of things and incorporating that. So we're trying to get a clearinghouse put into place as well, so all teachers can go to one location and find all of these resources as well. But yes, we know, and we've built into our grant application release time for substitutes. I think the problem we're going to have in our area is there's no substitutes. There's nobody to put in. So yes, we're going to try and leverage technology to reach out and get teachers trained.
Is there any other question in the audience? Bill?
Okay, next question.
Oh, wait. One up here.
Up here?
Yep, right at the front table. White sweater.
Good morning. Probably directing this to the superintendent. Now, we just heard about the lack of substitute teachers and professional development in the broad brush. And so we always think about all of this good work has to drill down to the classroom. And so I'm curious to know what kinds of professional development you're looking at, and not only how you are helping to transform teaching, but also how you're communicating to parents.
Well, as mentioned, the grant process, actually the grant is due on the 28th. There's a lot of pre-planning that's going into it, so more will need to come. So with a number of your requests, those all haven't been vetted out to the detail yet, but in a lot of our schools in our region, we're trying to build on the good things that are already happening, so not necessarily something brand new, but what's happening and there's just not the resources or the time to implement. I know through our IU, who is a partner in the operation, they have, from the Pittsburgh Penguins Foundation, a lot of, I'm going to say, elementary level experiences with technology that can be brought in. And I know there are a lot of schools who are using the equipment, the bots, and a number of instruments that can be used in elementary level to build. We're finding in our schools that the children love that, and it's opening doors to our teachers. The technology itself, some schools are one-to-one school districts, some schools are not. There are different platforms that schools use. We're trying to build on what they already have. So for it to be successful, it can't be that you're dropping what you're using, that's no good anymore, let's move to something completely different, because we know how that feels. This is a building process. It might look different in every district. It depends on where you are and your needs. The theme is, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's building on what you have and making it better, and individualizing education for the students you have, individualizing the ideals of the grant for your particular needs. So with the regions and the schools that are involved, starting with the 4 schools that are involved, that's the, I'll say, pilot. That's one of my favorite words. We'll pilot that and grow it from there.
And I'm sorry, if I can add, if you don't have a relationship with your Workforce Development Board, I strongly suggest that you do that. The Department of Labor and Industry has made a lot of wonderful, flexible funding available to us through competitive applications. One grant that's out there now that's going to close at the end of this month is Teacher in the Workplace grants. And so if you haven't looked into that, please, again, connect with your local Workforce Development Board. We were very successful in getting, and I don't know if Kathy Harlow is here today, superintendent from Tyrone, but I think she had the opportunity too to speak to you earlier in your your conference about what a wonderful opportunity this is to get your teachers actually out in local industries, businesses and industries, seeing firsthand what their needs are. And then in the case of the program in Tyrone that we're helping to support, taking that information back to the classroom and actually working on their curriculum so that they can incorporate what they're seeing and what they're hearing in industry, and in many cases STEM-related occupations, including that into their curriculum and giving their classes, their young people, a chance to hear firsthand what they observed and how they can then learn from what the teachers have experienced out in the workplace.
Susan, could you also add how you incorporate business education partnership funding into bringing this community together?
Absolutely, and that has just been, has allowed us to do more to connect literally in a small rural region like ours, thousands of young people coming from the K through 12 system out into, and we're doing STEM camps this coming year. We've got not only the regular industry partner or industry tours that we have supported actually for decades in our region, but doing a really cool program this year called Breaking Taboo, and that's introducing young women to occupations that they normally wouldn't consider. Meteorology, we heard from Sunana about what her interest in the stars had been. Using funding like that, again, working closely with our educational partners, with our economic development, and also with our business and industry to introduce young people to opportunities right in their own backyard so they could see that they don't necessarily need to leave our region in order to find gainful employment.
You know, a message you could take from what Susan is saying is there's the thought out there that the workforce development system deals with individuals who have lost their job, and which is true, that's a big part of our mission. But the other part of our mission is founded in our youth funding and all the youth programs that we support to try and help students along, and especially help students that are out of school youth as well. So there's a lot of good things that come out of the Department of Labor. So if you don't interact with your Workforce Development Board, seek them out because they're a great resource for you.
I want to go back to the comment about parents and how we're reaching out to parents. I can't stress enough your relationship with your local public library. If you're not in contact with your local public library, we did a design studio in preparation for our grant. So we had a group of people, we had a facilitator who led us through the design studio. We identified our 4 target populations, which were parents, teachers, students, and businesses, and parents were a big piece of it, and that's where the public library system came in. They have a lot of maker spaces, they do summer reading clubs, they do after-school programs, and parents come and interact with their children in those environments. So having the public libraries involved gives us that avenue to reach parents, not just through the traditional, parent-teacher organizations that schools have, but in a different environment, an out-of-school environment, where parents are very engaged with their children at that level. And this is where, when we get the public libraries on board, channeling our message to parents, we're doing a lot with reaching parents there. So partner with your local public libraries if you can. They're a big, big source in this.
And one thing I wanted to add about our industry tours is that we realize that students say, oh, you know what, I want to get out of this town as soon as I can. There's nothing to do here. So what we've been doing with our industry tours, not only with our students, but our teachers that get involved in those, is we've added the quality of life piece. So we may take a school district to one of our local businesses, but then we take them to one of our, maybe our museums, or taking them to what we call Bottle Works, is where our arts center is. So what we're trying to do is not only just say, hey, there's opportunities for you to have a career here, but also we have a symphony, we have an arts center, we have river rafting, we have cool tubing, we have all of these really cool things that go along with the quality of life issue, is to try to get them, to introduce them to not only what the job opportunities are here, but the quality of life issues that are here as well. So I think that's been very successful for us to be integrating those two initiatives, is showing them what's out there. And then also to answer part of your question is with what we try to do when we're looking at doing activities in the schools is we try to get into the schools as much as we possibly can so that we don't have to obviously we want to bring the students out to see what's going on, but also if there are activities that we can do in the schools, we try to get into the schools and try to maximize that time so you're not having to come out all the time. So we have programs that we do that as well.
Thank you. Sean, I'd like to hear from the industry side of things, why you're involved, what you are hoping to get out of it, and how would you suggest if others are going out there and creating ecosystem, what's the selling point to industry for their involvement?
Well, since I'm the only boy, I'm glad they let me talk. We're in uncharted territory in a lot of ways. What I mean by that, for the first time, especially in our region, we've got more jobs than what we have people. And that's a real tough thing to wrap your head around if you come from the part of the state that we're from. It hasn't been an easy couple decades, and there's still, unfortunately, some parents and a fair number of educators that are still laboring under that in order for you to be successful, you need to move out of town. And so our challenge is, frankly, we have a tremendous number of openings, and I would venture to guess that businesses, and again, in your area, have the same thing. So what we've had to do on our end is be proactive and get out there. I did a count real quick last night before I left, and over the course of the last 12 months, either personally or folks in our company, we've been at 12 different public schools, 2 CTCs, in advisory capacity, a local college and a community college. Penn Highlands, where my son's a student, by the way. For a lot of reasons, and really, too, explained to folks what opportunities there, and trying to have them understand what educational requirements there are, and the fact that they exist in their backyard. So I think businesses that are proactive are frankly going to win. They used to call it in the 90s, they called it the war for talent. I think it's worse than that now. It's amazing what employers are having to step up their game, and I think it's a very good thing. But I imagine you all went into this because you wanted the best for your kids. I'll call them your kids. There's plenty out there for them. They just have to know how to attain it and have the skills and education necessary to take advantage of the opportunities that exist.
Thank you. Were there any other questions from the audience? Wanted to turn it back out there.
Right here.
I'm just curious, as I've gone to a lot of sessions, as I heard the speaker this morning and then this panel, there's an awful lot of stellar things happening on the western side of the state. Many of us in the audience are not from the western part of the state, so I'd like to hear firsthand how this began. I heard about the impetus, with the grant funds, but what was the next step for those of us in other areas of the state that don't have what you have on the western part of the state or the southwestern part of the state?
Sure. Go right ahead.
You're welcome to come stay with us. We need people. It isn't as hard as what you think, but you need to have the right players, and they're here in the right places. All you need is a few engaged educators and a few engaged parents and business people. You may not think that they want to be in your school. They do. They absolutely do. Their problem right now is they can't find people. They want the best for the people that live in their area. Ask for them. You have school boards. I would assume that you have some business folks that are helping you on your school boards. I think it's as simple as a request. I agree that, I think they say that it ain't bragging if you can do it. I think we do a better job than most folks, but I don't think it's that hard, and I don't think that anyone else can't replicate what we've done.
I want to address, too, just to give you a little background on our area, because we were doing a lot of statistics for the purposes of writing a grant. 53%, we have 50,000 students in our 4-county service area. That's in 35 school districts. Of those 50,000 students, 58% of them are on free or reduced lunch. So we have a high poverty rate. There's not a lot of resources in some of those schools. In fact, the Greater Johnstone School District, 100% of those students are on free or reduced lunch. So we've got a lot of challenges in our area. So when we kid around and say Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, there's a lot of resources in those areas. Sean with Riggs Industry has been a big supporter because he's got a business. They're in Somerset County. They want to remain in Somerset County, and they are looking for a trained workforce. How did we get this started? I literally sat down and I talked to our head of workforce development, and I said, who are some of the businesses and industries that the college does business with often? And he gave me a list. I literally got email addresses, and I sent out an invitation. I said, look, here's an opportunity that's coming. I know we've worked together in the past. I know we're all doing these things. Would you like to come to the college and sit and talk about this? And believe it or not, almost everyone I invited came because we're all doing it. And we now want to collaboratively do it better. So it's a simple thing of just asking. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how many people respond positively to you and want to be involved in your schools, helping your teachers, educating your parents, and connecting with business and industry.
And I can add from my experience of traveling all over the state, this is actually happening in many places throughout the state. What you generally need is a critical need, which they have in Southern Alleghenies, and then someone to take the mantle and charge forward with it. Because as they pointed out, everyone has all the pieces to the puzzle in their area. It's a matter of pulling them together and getting them to head in the right direction.
Yeah, it's also that when those of us sit in, we have different areas that we serve and different populations that we serve, but we all serve similar ones. But when we're out and about, like you said, when I'm out talking to businesses and I do business counseling, I talk to them about the STEM initiative. I talk to them about what they're doing, and they go, oh, you know what, we always wanted to get involved, we just didn't know how. So part of it is actually a marketing piece or a promotion piece of all of us that are on the team. When we're talking to businesses or other agencies, we make sure that we get the message out, even to, even our parents when we're talking to parents. But a good portion of it is promoting what's going on in the community.
Is there any last question from the audience? We've run to the end of our session. One last one.
I have some awareness of the Southern Allegheny region. I was just wondering if you have plans to engage more of the region in this initiative, in this programming.
Well, we're working with one IU right now that covers those 4 counties, working with Penn State and a second IU that will pick up Fulton and Huntington counties. They're the 2 of our 6 counties that are not included in this. So yes, we're going to definitely push the initiative across all 6.
Well, we are at time here. I want to thank our panelists for driving out here and for sharing their experience and for their words of wisdom. And we applaud you for taking in the initiative and preparing our future. Thank you.
And thank you for having us. We really appreciate being here today. So thank you for having us.
Thank you. And one last plug for your workforce development boards. Get out and meet them. The same people that sit at the dais today are the same types of individuals that are represented on your workforce board, so they can help you to open up a lot of doors that you may be struggling to get into right now.
Never doubt that a group of committed individuals can make something happen and change the world. Indeed is the only thing that ever has.
And don't be afraid of your economic developers. We're in it too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary Cipriani, her panel of experts, and of course, Sunana. Let's have one last round of applause for all our speakers this morning.